In the 15 months since Ambassador Aponte was sworn in as the U.S. ambassador to El Salvador during a recess appointment, she has impressed the diplomatic establishment with her professionalism, won the respect of parties, both right and left, in El Salvador. She has won the respect of civilian and military forces. She has won the respect of the public and private sector. She has won everyone's support and fostered a strong U.S.-Salvadorian bilateral relationship that culminated when President Obama announced El Salvador as only one of 4 countries in the world and the only country in Latin America chosen to participate in the Partnership for Growth initiative. Most importantly, Ambassador Aponte has been an advocate for American national security and democratic values. As a result of her advocacy, El Salvador is again a key ally in Central America, and its troops are the only one from a Latin American country fighting alongside American troops in both Iraq and Afghanistan. Ambassador Aponte has consistently fought efforts by Cuba and Venezuela to gain influence in Central America. And as a result of her negotiating skills, the United States and El Salvador will open a new joint electronic monitoring center, jointly funded, by the way, that will be an invaluable tool in fighting transnational crime. This is a record of success. It is a record of honor. It is a record of diplomatic and political distinction. It's the record of a dedicated, qualified, experienced, and engaged American diplomat, a 15-month record that brought our nations together and pursued our interests. What more could we ask? What more should we ask? So having said that, because of my strong belief that Ambassador Aponte is fully and uniquely qualified for this post, during the last several months I worked with the distinguished chairman, Senator Kerry, to find a way, despite committee precedent, to allow additional Republicans on the Foreign Relations Committee to review the ambassador's FBI file. As a result, not one but 2 Republicans, my colleague and friend from Florida, Mr. Rubio, and the senator from South Carolina, Mr. DeMint, were able to review her file. Since the concern had been not having access to the file, we presumed that once they were reviewed, they would lift their objections and allow a vote on her nomination. Why? Because there is nothing in that file that would indicate otherwise. But we were wrong. It wasn't about the file. That appeared to just be a delay tactic. The opposition to Ms. Aponte's nomination turned out to be about one thing and one thing only, and that's politics. Our good faith effort to provide full access to information and address concerns about Ms. Aponte was summarily dismissed. At our nomination hearing in November, Republican members of the committee raised a new concern: an editorial penned by Ambassador Aponte on tolerance and nonviolence during Gay Pride Month in June. Republicans decried it as disregarding Salvadorian culture and questioned her motives for writing the editorial, despite the fact that the editorial was a result of a cable edict to all embassies from the State Department urging missions to write editorials during these events. The true irony of this trumped-up allegation is that the editorial, which Republicans assert, quote, stirred controversy and was rebuked throughout Latin America, mirrored a May 2010 decree by Salvadorian President Funes prohibiting discrimination by the government of El Salvador based on sexual orientation. So let's be honest. There's no question about Ambassador Aponte's qualifications or performance on the job, or about whether an editorial on tolerance is grounds for sacking an ambassador. This is just another Republican dog and pony show to undermine the president's policy objectives and attack a qualified Democratic nominee to an essential post. When the facts, when the files, when there is nothing that corroborated the vicious allegations about Ms. Aponte's past, those on the other side argued that her editorial on the elimination of prejudice was the basis for their opposition. When they learned that the government of El Salvador itself supports this view, Republicans again changed their tune. 4 weeks after her November 29th nomination hearing, on the eve of the Foreign Relations Business Committee meeting, these members decided they wanted to attack from a different angle. They called for a new classified hearing to vet her nomination, to permit questions to FBI and diplomatic security investigators about whether they had been subjected to political interference for determining Ambassador Aponte's eligibility for a security clearance. I find it pretty appalling that members of the chamber would essentially suggest, without evidence, that professional FBI and diplomatic security members would bend to political pressure, or that any administration would apply such pressure, risking U.S. national security on behalf of any person. Those members knew the content and timing of their request would make it impossible to fulfill. And to his credit, the chairman of the committee, Senator Kerry, over the last several weeks has nonetheless sought to resolve the situation. And in fact, there has been an offer made to Senator DeMint to go over the whole essence of the background of the diplomatic security clearance. Mr. President, the shifting basis of the opposition to Ambassador Aponte reveals, to me at least, that the motive for this opposition is pure partisan politics, driven by pure partisan interests, fueled by pure partisan desire to disrail an administration nominee for the sake of derailment alone, without any regard to the consequences for American foreign policy or for the nation. I have seen this ambassador. She has succeeded beyond anybody's wildest expectations in a country that has dramatically turned the course of events in a way we want to see it. I urge my colleagues to support Ambassador Aponte's nomination. I urge them to put partisan politics aside, recognize the benefits to America's security and foreign policy interests that her tenure has delivered, and allow Ambassador Aponte to continue serving our nation.